I'm going to bring Lois Cooper onto the stage now. Lois is a second-year journalism student, and she's going to be introducing each piece tonight. So please join me in giving Lois a big welcome to the stage.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. So later on I will be speaking to several people all around the theme of voices, but now we'll be hearing from several people that have contributed to the anthology. And we will start with Tom Bennett with his piece, The Blue Hills of Georgia.
The Blue Hills of Georgia. A man lies lifeless on the floor of a balcony in a Memphis motel. A bullet lodged in his shoulder has severed his jugular and carved up his jaw and spinal cord. Martyred for her dream he'll never see. A wife laid to rest before the first black leader of her country takes to the world the dignity and discipline of that dream. Laid to rest in the same state where the first black senator to roam the empire of the South parts the Red Sea and reclaims the liberty of the land of the free. And now the flames on Capitol Hill are doused. The first black VP takes an oath of office, a promise to dream didn't die on that balcony in Memphis.
So Beth Lang couldn't be here tonight to read her poem, The Retreat, so Becca Edwards will be reading on her behalf. Also, Paige Laughlin could also not be here tonight, so Becca will also be reading her 3 pieces entitled In My Head, Spoiled Fruit and Natero.
Have we met before? So this piece is called The Retreat by Beth Lang. You take your last cigarette out to the fire escape with a list of excuses at the ready. The sun is out, high overhead and blistering, even though it's only just hit 8. It would be nice to bask in it for a while. Or maybe you want a final view of Hell's Kitchen to take with you, an image to stamp behind your eyelids, the laundry lines above the bustling streets, the sun glancing off the rooftops, and the fruit market opening up for the day 3 stories below. You will have to give old Greta a goodbye before you head down to the docks. She'll be stacking crates at this hour. She will probably give you a peach or a mango for the journey and tug mournfully at the kiss curl escaping your cap. You'll have to pretend not to notice the tears pricking at her eyes. This isn't the time for excuses, though. Your assigned boat leaves for England in an hour. It's been difficult to swallow properly since you woke up, and at this point, you would probably tell the truth to just about anyone. At 1:15, the lad across the street will come out to his balcony to water the plants, and the truth of it all is that you've been out here every morning to watch since you first had his timings memorised. The routine kickstarts when his mother leaves for work. You like to watch her bob around down the street through your smoke cloud, lips tugging unwittingly into a smile when you can no longer hear the clack of her heels. Then, announced by the unclipping of a latch and the clumsy knock of a watering can against the doorframe, her son stumbles out to complete his chore. It happens every day except for Sundays, when he and his ma head to church instead. He never looks back at you on Sundays. The largest of their plants, a potted eucalyptus, looks a little dehydrated from where you're standing. You tell yourself that every day, an unshakable habit, even though you are long past trying to convince yourself that you actually give a damn about the thing. The tremor of your brogues against the railings and the quick rotation of the cigarette between your fingers is more than enough to diagnose your impatience, simmering deep beneath the layers of your uniform. You itch around your cuffs and along your hairline where your cap will sit. And then there's a moment's weakness because you imagine him in uniform again, a few months from now, when his 18th year catches up with him and gets him drafted, the bronze of his parted hair blazing off stiff khaki and his eyes too large in his face. You take a long drag of tobacco and pray to God you never get to see it. 10 minutes have passed. You know without checking. The minutes dress down on your shoulders and heave like breaths in your chest. You wonder for a moment what you'll do when he steps out, hair muzzled with sleep, copper can hooked over his fingers. He'll force himself to tend to the plants before he tilts his head back and allows himself a glance. Sometimes you lift your hand in a harmless wave and he returns it, like you're the pair of old fellas who live 2 blocks up from here and have greeted each other like that for decades. You haven't had the chance to lose count of the years with him yet, though. You don't know anything about him at all, except for the things you do know, like his most loved sweater and the least loved plant, the eucalyptus, and the exact shade of pink his cheeks turn when you offer him a smile instead of a wave, curling easily around your cigarette. He ducks inside faster on those days, like he's been caught, but the grin he flashes back at you makes it worth the mere seconds. 12 minutes passed. You wonder if you'll be brave enough today to meet his eye and tip your head in a quick but unmistakable invitation to the alley around the back. You have things you want to tell him before you ship out, where you're going, even though it's obvious. It doesn't feel right to leave it unsaid. You want to tell him that you're heading across the pond, where they will strap a gun to your shoulder and stuff explosives into your pockets. You want to tell him that you wish you could take him with you. Not into the war, never there, but to the docks at least, where you can kiss him goodbye, and he can give you his handkerchief the way the wives of parting soldiers tend to do. You know the latter is impossible, a sepia-toned scene from a pipe dream. Killing another man may not be a crime anymore, but loving one still is. Realistically, you'll be satisfied with only asking for his name. You have never felt a need for it before now, though sometimes you caught yourself swirling consonants around your tongue to see which one fits him best. He probably got given his father's name, something Catholic, as strong and steadfast as the roots of the balcony plants. His ma seems like the type to take pride in raising fighters. After Pearl Harbor, though, your frivolous wants solidified quickly into pressing needs. The Uncle Sam posters were dusted off and plastered to the corners of every block within hours of Roosevelt's broadcast. You had joined the line at the recruitment station with the rest of New York's young men, but had thought, privately, that finger-pointing bastard was telling you all a whopping great lie. There was no "I want you." This had nothing to do with want. The war had stripped the world and its soldiers down to their most basic needs, and certain things feel as vital now as the rifle in your jacket. You imagine how the men in your regiment will press their lips to pocket-stored photographs of lovers with glossy perms and stockings and scarlet smiles. They'll pin their girls up to the walls of the barracks or prop them up in the mud to gaze upon before they fall asleep. You'll lie a few rows over, accompanied by a face unseen by the others, the bones of his cheeks snagging the backs of your eyelids and his syllables getting lodged in your throat. His name is a secret you'll spend the war choking on, but the need for it thrums behind your skin as insistently as a pulse. Sorry. It is 8:15. You think you see a curtain twitch. Your cigarette has nearly reached the filter, and the paper snags once, twice on your drying lips. Someone a few doors down has turned the wireless on near their open window, and Glenn Minner's trombone weaves through the clacking of unfolding store shutters and the distant motor horns a few streets over. It's a little too much like the soundtrack at the end of a Hollywood picture, and you feel your throat constrict around the smoke. Wouldn't that be something? The balcony door opens. His mother steps out. Her hair is pulled taut from around her face by a set of blue rollers. There's a wet dishcloth draped over her left shoulder, and she's sloppy and inattentive as she drenches each plant, the can swaying in her grip and sloshing water over the griddled metal flooring beneath her slippers. The creases around her scowling mouth etched deep shadows into her skin. Her routine has been disrupted. She should have left for work 5 minutes ago. You fix your hands around the railings to steady yourself and wonder whether her anger even comes close to rivaling yours. It's less than a minute before she's watered everyone, and then she straightens, feeling the gaze zeroed in on her back. She turns and discovers your silhouette instantly, but the sun must be glancing off the rooftop of your tenement because she has to squint to find your face. Her eyes, once they have a hold on yours, lock like a latch into place. You've grown desperate enough that you search for glimpses of him in her features, dissecting her beneath lowered eyelids. He isn't anywhere in her face. Her cheeks have deflated with age, and her irises are far too dark. Their hair may have once been the same colour, but where his was always curling strands of molten copper at this time of the morning, most of hers has coarsened to a wrung-out grey. You debate being the first to remember your manners and look away. Your cigarette needs stubbing out. It will singe your lips if you're not careful. But there is a boat pulling into New York Harbour. Common decency doesn't matter anymore. You continue to stare until she figures it out. It takes her exactly 26 seconds. Her pursed lips quiver, then sag, and her eyes swell with realisation, scrolling over the expanse of your uniform as though noticing it for the first time. She scrutinises the crisp labels and the polished buttons, and then the unbending resolve in your gaze. It's like you said, this is no longer a time for excuses. 100 scenarios flicker across her face. Her eyes are wet and her jaw churns over things unsaid. She wants to question you, but she doesn't want the answer. She wants to scream without drawing attention. Maybe she wants to throw a slur at you across the street, cough it up from where it's been buried deep within her faith. It's clear that you haven't done anything. There is no quantifiable evidence of any sin, only the longing she sees in your gaze, an ache like hunger dislodged from your chest. You're being forced to head straight into battle with your need for him left unsatisfied. It feels like punishment enough. 18 minutes passed. You inhale a breath. She blinks slowly, swallows, and then turns, ducking back inside and letting the door snap shut behind her. It isn't difficult to understand why. There is little point in threatening a man already halfway to the gallows. Walk to the harbour takes 30 minutes, but you could probably make it last 40. You snuff your cigarette out on the metal railing and the ash filters through the air to the street below. You watch it until the lock of your jaw eases and you stop tasting salt. As you head back inside, you retrieve your cap from the hook by the door and you consider the possibility that he's a coward, has been all along. Running your mind over endless explanations is useless. There is one you've been sure of for a while now. It used to keep you awake at night, even more than the looming war. There is a reason why he is avoiding you now, just as there is one for the early half-smiles and the flushed face, the suspiciously uncreased nightshirts and the fumbling hands. There is a reason why he can't bear to see you like this, in all your burnished glory. There is a reason, and he's running from it. Your usual exchanges of smiles and a wave would have hurt just as much as crowding him behind the trash cans around the back. Even offering him a stupid two-fingered salute would have likely killed you. But you were out there to face it regardless, like any real soldier would have done. By the time you're out on the street, heading eastwards, ignoring your blotchy eyes and Greta's kiss ghosting your cheek, you change your mind. You know, realistically, that his decision stems from something more like wisdom. Staying inside, staying and doing nothing, is the smart thing to do, the tactical thing to do. Your boy knows a lost fight when he's in one, and maybe that makes him the better soldier, really. Thanks. So I'm going to read a couple of poems now. Sadly, Paige couldn't be here, but I know that she really, really wanted to be, but she's not been very well. So there's a couple of poems of hers. The first one is called In My Head. My head sits on shoulders in a toilet stool, makes out its hands through a milky veil as voices call behind frosted eyes that fade all colour to ash. Try, finger, thumb, arm, pinch hard. You're not real. Our movement glitches, creating stills that play in time to the stuttering heart, the tears on our lap. Wipe yourself down. They'll notice. Act normal. You don't exist. Get out. Before our exit, a mirror, a glimpse of our wilted face, the sallow skin crumpled beneath dark circles, and the cheeks of our father. Don't think about him. It never happened. You're not even here. Okay, so thanks. It's always awkward knowing when to applaud, isn't it, if you're reading more than one piece? There's so the second poem is called Spoiled Fruit, also by Paige. The cherry stone catches a tooth, cracks down the fault. Hang on, I'll start that again. The cherry stone catches a tooth, cracks down the fault line, falls in a red pool, and drowns in my palm. I explore with a finger, the enamel sharp at its tip. Eyes open to the nightly guest, his breath dampens my lips. He's too close. Bury it. Bury him under the pillow, under the sheets. The fissure begins to sprout fresh green. Its stem hardens. Skin silvers the red fruit swell. Spoil. Hang in the morning. I hide amongst the fruit flies, the weak branches comforted by the throb in my jaw, the jagged edge that shreds my tongue. You're all being very patient, thank you. And then the last poem is called Natero. So it's there's a footnote at the bottom of the poem that names all the gods, and I will try my best to pronounce them. Salacia is the Roman goddess of the sea, wife to Neptune. Scotus, if there are any students out there who do Greek that could correct that pronunciation, if I'm doing it wrong, that would be great. Scotus is the Roman god of darkness. Venus is the Roman goddess of love and beauty. And Natero is the Roman god of lost things. The ocean holds her eyes, the almond-shaped lineage frames broken vessels that made it ashore. Salacia strokes her hair as she searches through driftwood for crumbs seagulls mock. Their strident barks prick her skin. With one taste, her pelvis floods as Scotus steals her mouth, wraps her limbs in his sheath made of paper, ink, glue as she hardens and deflates. The brittle carcass painted with makeup as Venus's muse. Swollen lips line the entrance to her hollowed shell. A small fish to remember, her eyes lost at sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca, for all of those. We're now going to be hearing from Laura Elsie, who will be reading her piece entitled I Miss You.
Sorry, I never actually said which one I was reading, so I actually don't know where it is. I will be there eventually. There it is. Okay. I make my mum cry. Surprise her when she is streaming her class live on Facebook. Spare room bare, save for the neon yellow yoga mat in the back. 70-odd miles away in a pub booth, I tap at the screen to send a heart, a smiley face. Strain to hear her voice through the speaker and amongst a tipsy crowd. She looks at me through the camera, face reddened, eyes shining. She smiles, steps away, and I close the app as she begins to teach.
Now, she'll soon be breathless, but I'd like to invite Becca back to the stage to read her own pieces, Dora Maar, Learning to Dive, and Elizabeth.
You're all going to be sick of me by the time of this event's ended, isn't it? So the first piece is, I originally wrote it for a submission call for a women's magazine called Dyslexia, and they wanted 500-word monologues about women, either fictional, real, is that the right word? Living or otherwise, pretty much. And I wrote two. The first one is called Dora Maar, muse and partner of Pablo Picasso. Taking a paintbrush, you filled the canvas in black lines, painted my limbs from fine to bold, sharp-edged, and changed my eyes from brown to ivory. You took me as your own, poured me into your palette, and garnished me in green. My teeth, though they chattered, clamped together like bricks, my nose a jagged cliff edge. After we'd made love that evening, entwined in silk bedsheets, you'd told me, as you ran your hands across my shoulder, the life lesson I would soon learn. There are only two types of women, goddesses and doormats. When I sat for you, I would pose still for hours, doing my best Venus, stay supine like Aphrodite, and as the years went by, became resentful as Nemesis. Your work was displayed across the world, your Muriel of the Civil War, and your famous portrait based on me. I sat quietly in my studio, painting, venturing out onto the cobbled streets of Paris to photograph the Seine. I would sit for hours in my developing room, in the dark, bathing images in saline, watching the skyline of Parisian rooftops emerge. For the next 70 years, hundreds of my canvases, sketches, and photographs stayed in that same studio. One day, I came home from a shoot and found you with Francois. She was posing for you, your new Aphrodite. The room became sharp, bold, filled with primary colours, the cracks filled in black like your paintings. There I was, downgraded for you to walk all over. I left. Now, after a lifetime, your Weeping Woman still hangs on display in the Tate Modern. When I sat for you those days, I watched you take in my own tears as I cried, examining me, your face unchanging. Pablo, I hope you know that I was weeping not as your muse, not as your goddess, or even your doormat. My tears will forever be shed for the Guernica, for the artists who went unrecognised while you made your fortune, for my photographs and paintings gathering dust, untouched by anyone but me. Thanks. Thank you. You must all be sick of me by now, sorry. So this next piece is a piece of flash fiction I wrote called Learning to Dive. I held my hands up, hands folded one over the other, and bent forwards, knees together, my body hunched as I looked down at my feet into the swimming pool. Broken water slapped up the sides as a boy dived in next to me, disappearing with a splash that frothed up from the blue liquid like a geyser. His body fragmented as he glided away from me in sepia and turquoise. The maple leaf-shaped mark on my thigh smarted. Chlorinated water cools hot skin, like a cold palm on the cheek when you come home from a long walk. Curling my toes over the lip of the pool edge, I watched the water rippling in front of me, finding the space to tip into. Ready, set, go. I let gravity pull me down as my hands plunged through the water, cutting through the surface. Warm air became cold water that compressed my ears, eyes, and mouth. I had frog's legs under here. Bringing my hands through the water, they met under my chin in prayer as my legs snapped together. I zoomed forwards, no longer conscious of him and his hard hands. Tilting my head to the sky, I opened my mouth and followed the bubbles to the surface, hands first, bracing myself for the heaviness of the air I'd left behind. I do have one more if you'll have me, and then I will leave you alone. But thank you, everyone. So this one is another submission call I responded to, another monologue of 500 words for a famous woman. And I always thought that Elizabeth, wife of Victor Frankenstein, never really got her say in the original book. She was always kind of just an object for him to marry. So I wrote a monologue based on that, kind of giving her a voice of her own. Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. Have I got the last page? Bear with me 2 seconds. It's always the last piece, isn't it? It's the most tense one. Just while I'm here as well, we are going to be selling copies of the anthology after the event. So if anybody would like one, then they'll be over here. Yes, it is for charity. All of the proceeds go to GL communities. So it is a really good cause. They do a lot of work for sort of helping poverty in the area, which is pretty good. I always think that's good anyway. I'm a very, very much a socialist. So, okay. so this piece is called Elizabeth, wife of Victor Frankenstein. On our wedding night, I waited in my cream silk dress for Victor, my mad scientist, my love. He did not come for me. His last letter to me seemed panicked, rushed. The ink was smudged across the page by a hurried hand that could not wait for his words to dry neatly on the paper. He'd created a monster, he said. He'd always been determined to perfect reanimation. I once found him with an electrode and a pair of frog's legs, the carcass discarded and wilted like dead tree leaves. He was zapping the legs, which twitched, then were still. I tried to sound unfazed in my replies, telling him of my family and how well we are. He looks upon me as his own, although I'm not sure how I feel about this. After all, I'm not a table, I'm his wife. As I sat in wait, I heard a banging on the door downstairs, the wind outside whistling under the door. I wondered what could hurl itself into a solid oak door with such strength, like a bull goaded by a matador. Unsettled, I rose and closed my bedroom door, waiting for the housekeeper to investigate. After Justine's hanging, Victor disappeared. The loss of his adoptive sister and young William was obviously too much for him, it seems. For all of us. Justine, who was so gentle and timid, being found guilty of using her own hands to squeeze the life from William, her own little brother. I do not understand how these things work. Courts, crimes, injustices, and how they are settled, clearly by hands of a monstrous size. My own hands would never have filled the bruise marks around William's neck. One night, Victor came to me covered in blood and earth. The earth seemed newly turned, and the blood was dry. He was strange, animated, muttering. Ugliest monstrosity. I had the housekeeper fetch him tea from the kitchen, which sat untouched on his desk as he paced the room. His teeth ground as he walked, dropping earth on the carpet. His hair was full of static, and everything he touched crackled. He jumped, laughing shrilly. As he spoke to me, I caught a waft of burnt cinder and something rotten, like meat left out for the flies and maggots. I thought back to the twitching frog's legs, the sizzle of the flesh. "Victor, what have you done?" I said. He ignored my question, took my face in his blackened hands. I flinched away from the smell on his fingers and palms. "But that I could tell you, my darling Elizabeth. I could not sully your fair head with such a nightmare. My darling, but that you knew. Nightmares, by their nature, creep from our minds and wash down into our skin, flood the shadows in our houses, and break down our doors to seize us from our seats, their hands clasping around our pale, exposed throats." Thank you.
Thank you again, Becca. So now we're going to introduce Beth and Manly to the stage, who will also be reading 3 of her pieces entitled Ythoid, Boys Will Not Be Boys, and My Tongue Craves.
Ythoid. My grandfather didn't learn English until he started school. He worked on a farm until his 20s when he married a city girl. I tell this to everyone. My favourite love story, the farmer boy who gave up everything to be with the city girl, even his mother tongue. My boyfriend carries a conversation with me in English. He is losing his love for our language. I write his Christmas cards in Welsh, trying to tell him, as my grandfather loved my grandmother, I will love him in every language. Boys will not be boys. To make a storm out of a woman is a mistake. She knows your weakness, will not hesitate to force you to your knees. You will beg for forgiveness, and she will laugh. Swallowing advice your father gave you, spluttering the blood of your victim, she was asking for it. Brambles grow over your excuses. I will cut them down, and all they will know is my red lipstick grin. Chwantai e tafod. Your eyes are closing. Please stay. Your hands go cold. I'm shouting as though vowels can keep you alive where I have failed to. When my tongue wraps around a double L, melancholy bites down harder. I can't speak Welsh without picturing you. You are in every consonant, every sound. You are in my mirror every morning, every night. I recite nouns until my mouth is tired, a pain that might stop this hurting, shouting adjectives at the stars in case they too have forgotten our language.
Thank you. I opted for the English translation of that last one. So for our final reader is Kit Tompkins, who will be reading Unfolding.
Unfolding. I get in my car while it rains outside, slide down slim city streets, snake out of the tunnel of town, and feel altitudinal air creeping through the vents of my car's heater. In the silhouetted stream on my windscreen, I make out the year's first daffodils, compelling their way out of the spring-soaked soil. I look out at the big below and realize that I have been crouching for weeks. Was it from impact, the weight and the walls of this confined town pressing on all sides? Was it from your fingers pinching me to fit the small space inside you? I thought it was a gift, this small part you let me live inside. Now, when I have space to stretch, a whole peak's worth, I notice my muscles ache from the cramped coop of your care. I stretch my fingers towards the lifeless sky, the torrent trickling down the sleeves of my sweatshirt. I look up, addressing the atmosphere in all its dreary damp. I open my mouth to the droplets and feel a sound bubble out. My brimful body overflowing in abundant echo, a shout so big it breaks my banks. The spray on my face turns salty. Thank you.
So thank you for everyone who has read tonight. That's just a snapshot of all the amazing writings that are in the anthology this year. So we are now going to have a short interval while we reset the stage for our interviews shortly. So thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're now on to the interview part of our evening. Firstly, I will be joined with Beth and Manly again to talk about her writing. So, Bethan, you have graduated with a first-class honours degree in English language and creative writing. Well done.
Thank you.
You're now currently undertaking a master's degree in in creative and critical writing.
Yeah.
So clearly you're very into writing, as we've had
Just a bit.
Yeah. So, but what age did you first realise that writing was something that you were passionate about?
It's something I've done as a hobby for as long as I can remember, really. I used to write a lot of songs, but I actually came to uni to do a law degree and kind of got past the first year and went, no, I don't want to do this. And then I was looking on the uni website and I saw this course, so I thought I'd just give it a go. And then in second year, I started to do poetry, and I was like, it's just gone from there, really.
Yeah, so was it more of a hobby for you that turned into a career almost?
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost, yeah.
Yeah, but so like, what sort of things did you write about from a young age? Because you said you liked writing about songs, but what sort of themes did you?
Oh, I was one of those, like, sad kids writing all the heartbroken songs at, like, age 12. But since then, I've kind of really started to write about my grandparents, mainly. After losing them, it's been, like, a way of expressing myself, because I've not always been good at expressing my feelings in other ways. So actually writing poetry for me was, like, a way of getting my voice out there. So it's kind of a good theme for this anthology.
Yeah, because a lot of your poems revolve around your Welsh heritage. So is that a way that you feel that you can stay more connected to your grandparents?
Yeah, it's something that I've been exploring more recently that I didn't even realise was a possibility, to combine Welsh with my poetry. My fiancé actually speaks Welsh, so I found that it's a way of, like, kind of connecting with him as well.
Oh, so it's relevant in your past, in your family relationships, and also in the present. So it's been brought forwards quite a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And especially since moving to Cheltenham, I've realised, like, just how important my Welsh heritage is to me, because that's how I've grown up, not necessarily speaking Welsh, but it's always been something that I wanted to learn, particularly because of the history of it and how it was so oppressed, that it's almost like I want to give that voice to the people who weren't allowed to speak their language.
Yeah. So are you learning Welsh at the moment?
I'm trying. Google Translate is my best friend at the moment.
I know, I couldn't pronounce that poem at all.
I've been practicing it, like, the whole walk up from where I parked my car. I was asking my fiancé, like, how do you say it? Is this right?
Over and over. But do you think it's allowed you to learn more about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Like, especially learning more about my heritage, I've kind of learned more about myself in ways that I didn't realise I could. Like, it's a way of connecting with a part of me that I'm not sure I know had I not taken this route.
So it's sort of, your writings helped you go quite deeper into your identity, really.
Yeah, it's like free therapy.
So quite a lot of your work has revolved around your identity and your Welsh heritage. Are there any other topics that you do like writing about as well?
Well, actually, that was a conversation I was having with my family over dinner today, where they were challenging me to write something that isn't sad.
Right.
But a lot of my poetry is exploring feelings that are quite taboo, that normally society won't talk about.
Yeah.
But you find a lot of poets will write sad things.
Yeah.
So that's where it's gone for me.
It's your niche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you have been published before, haven't you? What were
Yeah.
those pieces about?
So at the start of the lockdown, it feels like so long ago now, I was actually part of a mental health anthology called The Mountains You Cannot See.
Yeah.
So I had a few poems in there that was really exploring my experience with mental health and other people's as well. And I had a poem published also in the pandemic. The pandemic's been good to me, called in Postcards from Malthusia, which was an online thing about the pandemic. So it was mainly about how everything was affecting people and all the stockpiling.
Yeah.
A lot of mentioning of toilet roll.
Nice. So has quite a lot of your writing just been based on your personal experiences, because you've used your writing in quite a personal way?
Yeah, definitely. Like, confession poetry is something that is quite big in my writing. I find it so much easier to write about what I'm experiencing, probably just because it's firsthand,
Yeah.
as opposed to writing from other people's perspectives. But it's something that I want to try. Yeah.
Because I suppose it has more of a personal feel, that you can feel more connected with what you're writing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So obviously the voice anthology, the theme this year has been all about voices. But how important do you think it is that people do use their voices to be heard, whether that is writing or verbally, or however they want to express themselves?
I think it's so important. Especially over the pandemic, you've seen so many people that haven't been able to get their voices heard. So I think when you can, you should use your voice to speak up about things, whether it's something that affects you or something that affects somebody else.
Yeah.
Like with my Welsh poetry, I find that it's a way of giving a voice to people that wouldn't have been able to speak up about it in the past.
Yeah. Brilliant. So obviously you have undertaken a master's now. Are you hoping to get published, or are you more focused on your master's going forwards?
It all hit me today, actually. I was sat by Waterstones and I was like, this is something I really want. Like, I want to write my own book. I want to focus on the poetry, bring out a poetry book. But there's so much work in the masters that it's kind of taken a seat back. But it's something I definitely want to bring back to the front now.
Yeah, put on the back burner.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for talking to me tonight, Beth.
Thank you
your
for having
poems
me.
Are very good.
Thank
you. So next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Tom Bennett. Thank you. So, Tom, you're a second-year student studying English and creative writing at the University of Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've just heard your poem, The Blue Hills of Georgia. So, once again, when did you first realise that this was something that you were interested in? Because to carry it on to degree level, you must have been quite serious about it.
Yeah, I've been writing for probably since I started primary school is why I really got into writing. Apparently I was a little bit better at maths than writing for a while, but that changed. But yeah, I used to write a lot of prose. I know I've had a poem published in this anthology, and ironically I'm not continuing it this year. I'm focused on prose instead, but
Yeah.
Poetry, probably when I started secondary school, I wrote a lot of poems for war remembrance and competitions around that.
Yeah, because for you, did it start as more of a hobby as well, until you realised, like, oh, actually I am very good at this?
Yeah, it was a hobby and just in school until I found it was something I was more passionate about.
Yeah, because you mentioned then that you wrote about like wars and remembrance during school, but now where does your inspiration come from? Do you like gravitate towards a particular topic?
I usually like write a lot of stuff around really dark themes. I don't write anything really cheery. But I think
There's a theme.
Yeah, But I think there's a reason for that, and it's because although the world can be a cheery place, it can be a very dark place as well. And I think one of the points of writing is to underline some of the problems in society and the state of the world, and the anthology does that very well, of course.
Yeah, because do you feel that these more like topical issues, they need to be written about?
Yeah, absolutely. And writing, I think, captures something in a way that spoken word doesn't necessarily do, because everybody who speaks spoken word, whether that's politicians or businessmen or whatever, think they're trying to address problems in society, always making it worse. So writing, I think, can capture and engage people in a way, especially by a lot of people our age and people who haven't been published necessarily before.
Yeah, brilliant. So with your writing, are you one of those writers that likes injecting deeper meanings in? There may be like an underlying meaning that people may not realise at first.
Yeah, particularly for uni. Sometimes I write things just to entertain people, but more so I focusing on things that have a much deeper underlying message and theme.
Yeah. So why do you think it's important for, I think you've just briefly touched on this, but why do you think it is important for you or others to use their voices, especially in the written word, as you were speaking about?
I think people who do use their voice in writing tend to come from a pretty average background, again, opposed to politicians or businessmen or whoever else who have been born into that life of luxury, so they can sympathise a lot more with the issues. It's important for them, I think, to call out the issues rather than anybody else.
Yeah, so do you think if you've had an experience, it is worth writing about, just for that personalised element?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you just write it for yourself, but it's always good where it can have a deeper, meaningful impact on other people as well.
Yeah, because I think that greater impact is what writing is all about, and when it affects other people as well, it makes them think more. So you're only second year, but what hopes do you have for your future of writing?
Now, I would like to write a novel like everybody else would. I'm sure he does writing. I write a lot of short stories at the moment through uni, so I'm focused on that at the moment. I'd like to be published in magazines and journals and that sort of thing as a good beginning to potentially being published as something else.
Yeah. Are your short stories similar to your poems in that you speak about topical issues?
Yeah, usually something topical, even if it's not obvious. It's usually a hidden meaning, at least, under the surface.
Brilliant. All right, thank you, Tom, for speaking to me tonight. It's been
Thank
really
you.
interesting. Thank you. So for the third contributor to the voice anthology that I'm going to speak to tonight is Alice Anderson. Hi, Alice.
Hi.
So you're a second year creative writing student at the University of Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So starting from the beginning again, what got you into writing?
Learning to talk, learning the English, just
Came naturally.
yeah. I've always talked a lot of rubbish, so you know, sometimes you write it down.
Just wrote it down on the page, get it all out.
I find it interesting, so
Yeah.
you know.
Everyone else must do too.
I hope so.
But what were your passions from a young age then that you wrote about, or was it just a bit of everything?
Well, when I was younger, I liked drawing and painting and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know when I jumped to words instead, and I lost the ability for everything else, especially numbers. But I don't know. I kind of I just find that real life is boring, so I write about interesting stuff. So it's like magic and superheroes and stuff, and just because nothing happens in life, really.
Make it more interesting. Anything can
So-
happen when you're writing.
Yeah. Just interesting stuff. Like even in the piece that I've got in the anthology, it's just. I mean, it's quite depressing, but you've got a little ghost, just something weird, just
Something
my little bit of
abnormal.
spice on it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So do you think you use writing as an escapism then, if you're writing about all these mythical?
Yeah, my problem is though that I have so many ideas that I'm like, oh no, I like that one, and then I'll write a couple of chapters of that, and then I'm like, oh no, I like that one instead. So I just
An overactive imagination.
I need to just stop and focus on one thing, but I just can't.
I suppose it's a blessing and a curse though, because you've got so many ideas. Just
I think it's helpful to the part of the course is looking at short stories because
you're forced to.
If I'm forced in a word count, then I can't just abandon it because I've only got a couple of 100 words left, so I might as well finish it.
Yeah. So I know that quite a lot of things you write about is about the power between characters, perhaps if they've started with less power and they gain through it. Could you tell me more about that?
So sometimes it's like literal power, as in like magic and stuff like that. But sometimes, like in the piece in the anthology, it's internal power, which is kind of more like real life. So it's where you feel powerless, but you have to feel like get your own power. So it's like in the piece, Alana, she felt powerless because she felt like she wasn't being listened to.
Yeah.
And it's like if you write it down, then the book will listen.
Yeah.
And maybe someone will read the book, and but then you're being heard, even if it's not by a person yet. Then the words are there, even when you're not there anymore. The words are there still. Yeah. So,
do you think there's a deeper meaning behind that? If that's a theme that you like to follow?
When I write, I try to put like deeper meanings in it. I try to put like little Easter eggs when I'm like, oh, that's gonna be good for like anyone reading it.
Gems.
But I probably either do it ham-fisted or like where you just don't notice it, and I'm like, did you see it? And everyone's like, what? So. Yeah.
They're too niche, no one notices.
Yeah.
Just for you.
Yeah, either it's too obvious and you're like, why? Or you just don't notice it and it's like, oh, it's sad.
So do you plan to continue writing?
I don't think I have a choice because my imagination just will not shut up. My brain won't shut up, so I might as well just...
run with it.
Yeah, I might as well just write it down so at least it's got a reason to keep singing obscure songs at like all hours of the day. So
well, if you've got a talent for it, you may as well
well, I like to think so. But it depends if I can force anyone else to read it, but
is getting published something that you are interested in the future?
Yeah. I'd like to be published, but it's just like I said, it's a case of actually finishing it. So yeah, I know publishing is its own hurdle, but it's also getting me to not run away with the fairies every time I get a new nice idea in the shower or something. But yeah. I would like it ideally.
Yeah. Brilliant. So do you think that being able to use your voice in this way with your talent has benefited you throughout the years?
Yeah, definitely, because especially like in the past couple of years, I think especially with younger people, we're feeling a lot more just angry at the people that are in power because they don't know what's going on. They don't understand us. They don't care, or like, because like it just doesn't apply to them. So it's just very like, and it feels like you can't do anything about it. So it's like, I know I'm just here writing stories about like ghosts and stuff, but it's like, it can have a little, idea that make you feel, oh yeah, I don't like that actually. Yeah. So
adds more meaning to it.
Yeah, it's like, it's not like I'm not like holding up traffic or something with like a sign, but it's something.
It's every difference, isn't it?
It's like for the soul.
Yeah, definitely. Because do you think writing is quite therapeutic for you?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, especially if I have like, I don't know, sometimes I'll get an idea and I'm like, it's something that it's something that I want to get out there.
Yeah.
And writing is really helpful for that. Yeah, my problem is I tend to write too long though.
Too much.
Yeah. So
It's just a case of getting
Getting it a bit more concise.
so people are just like, what are you going on about?
Yeah. I'm sure they're not like that.
There's just too much words. It's like, I don't care anymore.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Thank you. And I'm sure everyone will be reading that in the Voice anthology soon. Thank you for speaking to me. So this has been an evening all about displaying people's creativity. And we've heard from 3 individuals that have given examples of their creative writing and creative process. But now it is time to move over to some other forms of creativity. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Jess Perry and Jack Shute.
This will make sense in a minute. Just enjoy for now.
So, Jess, you are a very talented individual who has many talents. I'll list a few. So, modelling, singing, equestrianism and science. And you've just published your first peer-reviewed academic paper. And Jack, you are a third-year journalism student with a regular news slot on Radio Gloucestershire. And you're also very well known on the drag scene as Ophelia Cox. Hint for later. So, Jess, starting with you. So with so many passions that you have, do you ever get overwhelmed trying to pursue so many?
Usually no. Over the past month, absolutely yes. But because they're all things that I enjoy, I make it work. I push through. I've had something on pretty much every day for the whole of October. Something different, going from one thing to another, going from horseball to modelling. But it's working for me. It's feeling okay. I like to keep busy.
Time management is a skill. But have you ever felt the need to choose just one career path? Like, how did you choose what to do?
Career-wise, that's based mainly on what I was particularly passionate about. So the main goal at the moment is to get into natural history, hoping to work in television for the BBC Natural History Unit. That's the main goal. Horse riding I've done since I was 3. Horseball I started at uni, and that became a great passion. In terms of career, I think I have the time to do multiple things.
Yeah.
I've dropped a few hobbies on the way, but these are the ones that I like to focus on now.
Yeah, so it's just the ones you want to pursue.
Yeah, it's the ones I enjoy the most. Yeah, the ones I enjoy the most and the ones that I feel I'm best at.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Jack, moving over to you. So, talking about passions, you've had one of your main passions in the form of drag.
Yes.
And you have previously performed as Ophelia Cox.
I have.
But, so take us back then. When did you first realise that drag was something that you were interested in?
Well, we have my mum to blame for that over there in the orange. My family are just incredible. I have the most supportive parents and my nan and everyone around me. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing it, because it was actually my mum who suggested that I do drag, which as a little gay boy is probably your dream. And and also having a dad as a gay boy who is so loving and supportive of something like drag is you just don't hear of it often. Yeah. I mean, that's why I love to talk about this, because I feel like there needs to be more positive stories out there about drag being accepted, especially by families. So has anyone heard about Everyone's Talking About Jamie, the musical? Yes? Yes. One of my favourites. I went to see a live screening of that with my mum at the cinema. Yeah. And after it finished, she turned to me and said, "Why are you not doing that?" And I said, "I don't know. Good question." So we gave it a few nights looking on eBay for a cheap wig. Here she is. She's called Lana. And my mum was like, "We're buying it. You need to do this." And I completely agreed, of course. So we got all the drag. We went to Bristol. We went to the shopping centre and found a beautiful red sparkly dress. Oh, actually, could we see a picture? I think we can get a picture of one of them. 2 minutes. Oh, perfect. Well, wait, we'll be there at some point. Thank you, Anna. And yeah, I entered a drag competition in Cheltenham, And that was amazing in itself, you know, because as Gloucestershire, I believe it's the only county in the UK without a gay scene, LGBTQ plus scene, which is crazy. And growing up here, I've lived here all my life as a gay boy. It would have been great to see something like that. So to be part of it now is magical. So I competed in that competition. I got to the final with all the support of everyone around me, and you can't stop me now. There you go.
You've opened it now.
It's open. You can't close it.
So Jack, talking about your support systems, so as both part of the LGBTQ plus community and when pursuing drag, how important was that support around you? You did touch on it.
It's everything. If you don't have that, it makes it harder. And there's so many people in the community that don't have that support, so they find it elsewhere, not their immediate family, but they make another family, their own family, and that could be friends and people around you. But I was lucky enough to have that from the get-go. Yeah. My family have always been supportive, and that allowed me to thrive in what I do. Yeah. And I know I wouldn't have done it, like I said before, if it wasn't for that support. So it really is everything. And like I touched on before as well, that's why talking about this is so important, because for people that don't have that support, if they hear a story like mine, they can learn that there is love out there for things like drag, which is often looked down upon, celebrated more now, we have to admit. But seeing that love out there allows you to believe that you can do something like that.
Become inspired by it.
Yeah, all of you are going to do drag tonight. I'm going to make it happen. So, you know, for real though, anyone out there who thinks that it's not possible, it absolutely is. All it is the 20 quid wig on eBay. You get a cheaper one if you want to. And, you know, you don't just have to get on stage to do drag. That's what I need to say. You don't just have to get on stage and dress up and look amazing. You can look however you want. You can do drag in your bedroom in private if you want. It's a personal thing. Yeah. It can be celebrated as well.
Isn't it?
It is an expression, exactly. And if you're doing that in your own private time and only you know about it, good for you, because you're still doing it and it makes you feel a certain way that makes you happy, and that's all that matters. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. So, Jess, going back to you, obviously you started quite a lot of passions, you mentioned, from a young age. Carrying on from the support systems, how was yours around you? Because you must have had a lot of support for you to be able to pursue all of that.
Yeah, for me, it was great. My parents were always supportive of whatever I wanted to try. And as a child, I wanted to try a lot of things. So I was originally doing things like gymnastics and ballet on top of everything. Anything I wanted to try my hand at, my parents would be like, yeah, okay, go for it. Let's see what you're interested in. I think the main thing when I was younger was expense-wise. I think there were certain options that I could have gone for that were a little bit more manageable, costly. Yeah. But I happened to pick the most expensive hobby, which is equestrianism. Absolutely. But my parents could see how much I loved it and enjoyed it. And they were like, this is something worth investing in because she's having a great time. This is her passion. So we'll encourage her. We'll pay for her way every week. So they've always been very supportive of that.
A lot to owe to them. Were confidence issues for you? Was confidence for you ever an issue? Because with so many things that you pursued, was there ever one that you were like, oh, I feel that I shouldn't be here? Did you ever struggle with imposter syndrome, dreaded?
Well, I think I've always been quite a confident child. I put 100% into everything I did. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to boss it, going to be the best there. So that was quite handy for me. I think the only thing that I did struggle a bit with confidence in was singing, because my dad's a singing teacher. He and my mum were in a band when I was a child. They were very, very musical. There was absolutely no pressure from them to be a singer, but I enjoyed singing. But I always felt, always wanted to impress them, always felt overcritical of myself in singing. So that was the one thing that if I tried to get up and perform, I would have, the nerves for. And
that came from just you, from yourself.
That came from me putting too much pressure on myself. Because my parents were always very encouraging of whatever I chose to do. Singing was just a hobby for me, but I didn't like singing in front of them because I thought they're pitch perfect. If I get something wrong, they're going to clock it straight away. So, yeah. But other than that, I think most things I went into with quite a strong head.
Yeah, because I think it is in most things, it is your mind holding yourself back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because Jack, if I move over to you now, pass the mic. To perform in drag, that must have taken a lot of confidence as well.
Yes.
But I'm guessing that didn't come naturally, or if it did, or when was the moment where it just clicked and you realised that you could do that? That was something that you could do.
Well, I like attention, I'm not going to lie. So it was all right. But I think it runs in my blood, honestly, because my great-grandmother was a performer. She loved the stage. She has connections at the Everyman Theatre, which we love here. And, you know, I had to be on the stage in some shape or form. Turned out drag, which is great. And... you know, that moment before I first stepped on stage, I mean, the first time I was ever on stage in drag was a competition. So it's, you know, it's difficult. There's the...
ease into it.
No, it wasn't a bit of fun. It was like, you got to try and win this. And I wasn't in it to win it, but I made it to the final anyway. So, you know, I clearly did something right. But yeah, that moment just before I first went on stage, I was absolutely bricking it. And that's not just because of the tight corset, but that didn't help either. But there was many things that I was terrified about, just like what people are going to think. But then when I stepped on the stage, I've never felt anything like this, but there was a roaring crowd and like applause, and it was all because I was dressed as a woman. I was like, what? This doesn't happen in society normally. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment because my family was there too, and I saw them in the crowd, which was even better. And that's all that really mattered to me. They stood out straight away. But it's just having something like that celebrated. I mean, drag is probably the queerest thing that you can do. So to have that loved and celebrated by so many people, it was such an amazing thing to see because it doesn't happen every day. And in a scenario like that, you feel so safe and accepted. And it might have been one of the first times in my life where I felt that in a public setting, because usually I'm very camp. I mean, hello, look at me. But, so people know straight away that I'm gay or queer at least. And, you know, people don't always like that. I was in drag. You couldn't get more queer, like I said. And, you know, so many people supporting that. I was like, I need to do this again, because not only does it make me feel good, but all these people in the audience are seeing how this is celebrated. Yeah. And, you know, before I actually did drag, and after we saw everyone saw that Jamie, me and my mum went to our first drag show together, which was at the Frog and Fiddle here in Cheltenham, which is really a good place for supporting local drag. And that was our first drag show, and mum was like, right, you're going to go on that stage next time they're doing something here. And I did. And, yeah, for all these people in the audience, and even people here tonight, to see something like that being celebrated, so important. And that's why I never shut up about it, because I'm always going to say that it's celebrated. And there might be, you know, people that don't support it, but I feel like nowadays there's a majority that do. So do it and don't give a damn what people say about it, because, again, it makes you happy. That's all that matters.
Brilliant. And what I've taken from that as well is you need to book your mum as your agent.
Oh, she is. She's like Kris Jenner, my mummager. Already done.
So Jess, next for you on the scene, what's going on? What are you going to take up next? Anything new on the scene?
Anything new? Oh gosh, okay. Well, I'm on my way to doing a horseball coaching qualification. I don't know if anyone has actually heard of horseball. No, cool. So it's described as a mixture of basketball and rugby on horseback, a bit like Harry Potter's Quidditch. So yeah, it's very popular in France, not so much in the UK at the moment. I'm doing a coaching course because I'm hoping to bring it down south because there's not many places that do it here.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. And then the main goal is still to try and get into the natural history unit. The thing that I was lacking was television experience. They were like, oh, we love your ecology background, your science background, but you just need a little bit of experience working in TV. So I've actually been given the opportunity to do a few shoots, work in the office at a TV production house. To get that experience, then hopefully next time I go for the NHU, I'll be able to pass those barriers.
Yeah, brilliant. Should have brought them here. Be like, look, I'm a natural already.
I know, if you're watching, you know. But yeah.
Brilliant. And back to Jag, that's all right. What tips do you have for anyone that was in the same shoes as you, say?
These shoes.
Yep, those ones. Perhaps 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I was a completely different person. Anyone, you know, seeing me like this now, I'm confident, I'm happy in who I am, and that's great. And again, because of the support of my family, I'm very, very lucky and privileged to have. But I wasn't like this 5 years ago, absolutely not. I've always loved being myself, which is a camp person, and I wouldn't hide that, but I've definitely come out my shell more. And that's because I did drag, I think, because, like I said before, being celebrated as doing such a queer thing made me realise I don't care what people think anymore, because there are going to be those people that celebrate me no matter what. And the tips I would give would be just do it anyway. Like I said before as well, even if it's in your own room, in your private time, that can be so magical for you just to have that moment. And that can open so many other doors for you. I mean, if I didn't do drag, I would never be where I am now. I love what I'm doing as I want to be a entertainment and showbiz journalist, and I have my slot on the BBC Radio Gloucestershire now, which is amazing. Thanks to Faye Hatcher, shout out. And if I didn't do drag, I wouldn't have got that, because I got interviewed on that radio station for the drag event, and that opened so many doors for me. So it just goes to show what drag can do. It might not be the same for everyone, but it'll open other doors, even if that's your inner self and your inner confidence and self-love, because drag is all about that. And it's funny because you're dressing up as another person, but it allows you to be yourself. And that's really what happened to me. Yeah. And now I'm the Jack I am today, thanks to Ophelia Cox.
Thanks to Lana.
And Lana, the wig and the shoes.
So talking a bit more about tips, what are your best drag tips?
Drag tips. Honestly, drag is... You can't categorize drag. There's no type of drag. Drag is anything. It's an art. It's an art form. You can make drag anything you wish. It doesn't have to be this wig. You can literally do anything in drag. Drag is something that's personal to you. You can look on Wikipedia at what drag is and it says what it is there, but that's not the be-all, end-all. Drag is literally what you make of it. You can go on stage and say you're in drag. If people say you're not, yes, you are, because you said you are. That's the power of drag, and that's why it's such a magical art form, because it's literally yourself, and it's yourself times 1,000, and that's why it's so great, because you can put everything out there and do whatever the hell you want. And I'm not doing drag as often nowadays, which is a shame because I love it, and I'm definitely going to do it again. But I'm focusing more on my journalistic career. But why not be a drag queen journalist? That's a first. I can do that. I know it will definitely always be in my life, and I'll definitely go back to it, and it's always going to be there, and I'm always going to be thankful for what it's done for me. And I just tell anyone who's interested in it, even if they're not, try it and see what happens, because who the hell knows? Yeah. Look what happened to me because of that wig.
I'm here now. Jess, talking to you about just some tips for anyone who maybe they feel they have too much that they want to achieve, but you've managed to achieve almost everything you want, really, or on the way to doing that. How do you think people can manage that?
I think it's just pushing through the doubt, because there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, I've got too much going on. Should I be doing this? Should I do that? But just take every opportunity that comes to you, push through it. Obviously, don't overwork yourself, don't exhaust yourself. But if you have the time and capacity to take on those things, just do it, because you may be, nervous about it, or you may be thinking, gosh, I got too much on my plate. But it's all worthwhile in the end, because, if you pass those opportunities, you'll probably end up regretting it in the future anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. Because do you think that it's something that that you just need to push through all the negatives? Like, was there ever a period in your life where you thought, maybe I can't do this, and you just had to keep going? Or was there ever a point where you thought you may have to give up certain things?
Well, about an hour ago, I was thinking, oh my God, this week is so hectic. But yeah, there have been times when I've been feeling quite overwhelmed with things. I've had to turn down a few opportunities because I've been prioritizing certain interests over others.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I've tried to take things one day at a time, and just appreciated every opportunity that I've been given.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I think the thing about both of you is you're two very different people, but you're all about expressing yourself and finding yourself and what you want to do. That's really the main thing that I've got from this conversation. But I just want to say thank you for both of you speaking tonight, because just how different you are, but similar in other ways. That sounds so different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been brilliant to talk to both of you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't know if to stand up now, but so it's wonderful to speak to everyone tonight and hear from all the contributors to the anthology, and everyone who's made that a possibility. And tonight, as Becca was saying earlier, the voice anthologies are available to buy. And now we're just going to end things here, but we will be around to talk to everyone in the audience and just have a quick chat. But yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone tonight.